In a previous video, I concluded that the tourist industry is a scam. The people have been continuously misled about annual multi-billion-dollar earnings when the fact is most of the earnings leave the country. This is referred to as leakage, and I reckon the award-winning Minister of Tourism watched the aforementioned video because he recently had this to say.
The 4.38 billion, some 40% of that stays in Jamaica. The way that tourism costs are calculated is, firstly, you have the purchases of the product, because tourism is an import that you export. So you have to bring in the product first. So the cost of bringing the tourists here, airlines, the marketing arrangements, advertising, capital expenditures that have been made to create the facilities here and the infrastructure for the tourists. So all of these are external payments that have to be made. And yesterday I indicated that $53 billion of direct taxes go into the consult fund from that 4.38. And then you have the cost of operating the transportation, the entertainment, the utilities that are required, and all of those are costs that have to be borne locally. So that's part of the 40 cents.
Okay, the award winner is extremely proud that the industry earned an alleged 4.38 billion last year, and direct taxation was 53 billion Jamaican dollars, which is around 340 million bucks. Context matters, and 53 billion is less than 5% of last year's $1.1 trillion budget. And it is also worth noting that the 53 billion does not include a contribution from the hoteliers, because the likelihood is that the big players pay nothing. So there's absolutely nothing to be proud of or to brag about. However, the minister acknowledged leakage and claimed that 40% of earnings remain in the country, which he thinks is a huge portion. Well, now we have a number to work with, so we'll see. Okay, 40% of 4.38 billion, that is 1.76 billion, remained in Jamaica. And a portion of that is at 340 million for direct tax. So 1.42 billion entered the economy.
The supply side now is what they do, what they eat, what they drink, what we provide here at home. And that's where the wealth is. And we have to invest more on the supply side so that that 40 cents, which I tell you stays here, can become 50 or 60. Because the least we import is the more we retain. And we have a nice phrase for it. We say we want to plug the leakages by strengthening the linkages.
He mentioned spending, but the 40% also includes wages, which he overlooked. Now, according to the Ministry of Tourism, the industry employs 350,000 workers directly and indirectly, which is a quarter of the 1.4 million workforce. To keep things simple, if all of the 1.42 billion was distributed amongst the workers, the average annual wage would be a paltry $4,000. The minimum wage is currently around $4,400 and set to rise to $5,000. It is worth repeating. Using the numbers provided by the minister and his ministry, the average wage in tourism, which employs a quarter of the workforce, will be way below the minimum wage. To tell you the truth, I'm not surprised. I live in Montego Bay, and apart from being dirty and decaying, it is dead even when cruise ships are in town. I do wonder how the craft market vendors survive, because very few tourists leave the hotels, and after a stroll along Bottom Road, I wouldn't do it again. So how does the remuneration compare to a living wage? Well, I believe that a living wage should not be taxed. So for me, the income tax threshold is a good yardstick to gauge a living wage. The threshold is moving to 1.7 million Jamaican dollars, which is around 11 grand per annum. So the average wage is a third of the living wage. The minister's repeated claims that tourism is driving the economy is just bullshit, because it appears to be modern day slavery. There needs to be an urgent examination of tourism, because Bartlett is hell-bent on further expansion. He concentrates on earnings and visitor numbers with no concern about the detrimental effects. For instance, the product is heavily dependent on water, but he appears unconcerned about the impact of his government's failure to deliver the commodity.
And as Jamaica grapples with a severe drought, hoteliers in Negril are reporting massive financial losses. Some argue Negril's image as a top tourist destination could suffer from the water crisis.
Owner of the Boardwalk Village in Negril, Richard Wallace, says he has been urging various governments to invest in infrastructure upgrades for decades.
It's been several months since some residents in Westmoreland had water in their pipes. It's estimated that close to 60,000 of the 140,000 people living in the parish are without water most days. That's been the case since November 2023, and now desperation is setting in. Criminality has also crept in, and to the detriment of students. A water tank at the Negril Primary School was stolen by criminals. The act happened over the Easter holidays while the students were at home. Stakeholders with larger investments are not spared. Stories from hoteliers are frightening.
Large hotels right now are spending anywhere from $2 to $5 million every week trucking water. A truckload, 3,500 gallons of water, is $40,000. $40,000. A small hotel in Negril is spending anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 weekly trucking water.
This document outlines the steps some hoteliers have taken. They pay thousands of dollars per trip to public passenger vehicles to take bed linen to other places to have them washed. This has left many guests frustrated, as oftentimes rooms are not ready after they've checked in. Hoteliers describe the situation as untenable. If there's no improvement, we've been told some businesses will have to close.
Bartlett is not ignorant about the water issues, but has done nothing. Did his new key performance indicators take into account the predicted worsening droughts when calculating his goal of 8 million tourists? His KPI obviously did not include paying a living wage. The people's money is being used for him and his mates to globetrot first class, to live it up in five-star hotels, enjoy fine dining, and entertain potential investors to try to persuade them to come and further exploit Jamaica. Award-winning Bartlett, who is now an author, cannot be celebrated in Jamaica. He needs to keep his butt here and explain how we benefit from his version of tourism, because the numbers he provided suggest that the industry is based on exploitation.